All right, this is our unit circle video. Here we are given a unit circle, in which case we can just imply that this length, our radius, is 1 unit. So it's a radius of 1. That's why it's called a unit circle. For your unit circle memorization quizzes, you'll need to know 4 different things. 1, at each point, when it creates the angle, so like this right here, you're going to need to know the degree of that angle. You'll also need to know the radian measure of that angle. The point, so in this case of this point right here, you're going to need to know the coordinates and that angle again that it makes. So in this case, this angle theta here, you're going to need to know the tangent. So you need to go the degrees, the radians, the coordinates, and the tangent of each. And I'll show you exactly what all those are here. First, we're going to go ahead and just do these red ones first. These ones are a little bit easier. Again, if we know that this length is just 1, we know then that this one is at the point 1, 0. That's our coordinate. In which case, the degree going from here's our terminal side to, or initial side, to here, our terminal side, well, there's no angle there. So we can either say that it is 0 degrees, or it would be 360 degrees if we go all the way around. That makes it 360. So the degrees would be 0 or 360. You can pick which one you want. The radians then, if we wanted to convert, would either be 0 or 2 pi. Either one works in this case. The tangent at this point, remember tangent is, in these cases, because we have a unit circle, tangent is going to be found by the y value over our x value. If you wanted to know the sine would be the y value over 1, 1 being the unit, our radius. Cosine would be x over 1. But we don't need to know those other ones, we just need to focus on tangent, which would be y over x. So in this case it would be 0 over 1, so we'd say our tangent is just 0. So that's how you would find that point. So again, you don't need to show any work, you just need to show these points here. Moving on to this dot up here, again, we know that it is 1 length away, so it's 0 left and right, it's on the x-axis, and it's 1 unit straight up. So we would say it's at the point 0, 1. The angle that it creates right here is a 90-degree angle, in which case then we also know that it is a pi over 2 radians. Oops. Now the tangent, remember, is y over x, so the tangent is going to be 1 over 0. But remember, anything divided by 0, it's not a real thing. You can't divide by 0. So the tangent is undefined. You have to write undefined for this tangent. Now moving on to this red dot. Over here again, just kind of getting the easy ones out of the way. The angle that is created all the way around is 180 degrees. The radian measure on that is going to be pi. Again, because it's right on our axes, it's -1 away from the origin, 0 up, or should I say -1 to the left and 0 up. Our tangent then is going to be 0 over -1, or just 0. So again, not too terribly tricky. I'm going to scroll this down really quick so we get on to our last one, the last red one here. The angle coming all the way around is going to be 3 different 90-degree angles, in which case it comes around to 270. This is going to be our degree measure there, which in radians comes out to 3 pi over 2. The coordinates of this point 0 is going to be our x factor because it's not going left or right, but it goes down 1, so a negative 1. So same thing for finding our tangent. We would take that negative 1 divided by 0, which is undefined. So we've done those the easy red ones. So those ones are kind of right on the dot. Let's do the purple ones, which are right in between. We know that from here to here is a 90-degree angle. It's a right angle. So if we only want to go halfway in between them, which creates this line, half of 90 is going to be 45. So these ones are, or at least this particular one, is a 45-degree angle. It might be helpful to write these small. I'm going to try to write them big enough that you can see, but for your quizzes, you're going to want to write them small and make sure you are distinguishing exactly which one you're talking about. 45 degrees, we can convert to pi over 4 radians. Our coordinates here are going to be pi over, or root 2 over 2 and root 2 over 2, in which case our tangent is root 2 over 2 over root 2 over 2, or we could just say 1. If we go another 45 degrees then, if here was 45 degrees, and we go another 45 degrees, we get to one that we've already done, so we don't have to worry about that. We'll go another 45 degrees, and that lands us on this point. At this point, we know, like I said, that it's another 45 degrees from where we were. So if we started at 90 and went 45 degrees, we know that this is 135 degrees. So 135 degrees converts easily to 3 pi over 4. And we would say, just like how this one over here is root 2 over 2 x units, or to the right, this one is going to be negative root 2 over 2 x units to the left, and it's still going to be just as high as this one was, so we would say it's still root 2 over 2 as our y coordinate. And since the coordinates are pretty much the same, but one is negative and one is positive, our tangent is going to be the same except negative. So it would be negative 1 at this point. Now again, if we go another 45, we've already done that one, so we'll go another 45, in which case we are looking at this purple dot down here. Now we say that we have our 180 degrees already, so another 45 degrees would put us at 225 degrees. And our radian measure then would convert to 5 pi over 4. Similarly, if we're looking in between these two, the x factor didn't change. It's still the same x amount away. So we don't need, oops, did I do too many things? No, that's just the amount. So our x factor of the coordinates is going to be the same, that negative root 2 over 2. But now it's the same y amount away, but just in the opposite direction. So again, it's another negative root 2 over 2. So those would be the coordinates. And again, same numbers, but both are negative. Two negatives would make it positive. So this one, the tangent stays as 1, and it remains positive. This last point here then, if you haven't caught on to the trend, it's another 45, in which case, if this one was 270 over here, then we go another 45 from there. This one would be 315 degrees, which converts to 7 pi over 4. The measure for that one is going to come out to the root 2 over 2. Because again, our x factor is positive here. Our y is negative though. So it's a negative root 2 over 2, in which case our tangent is going to be negative as well. So in this case, we've done all of our our purple and our red dots. Now to give us some more space, I'm going to erase everything. So make sure you have all of these down now this time around. There, now we have a little more room. So now I'm just going to focus on the green and the blue ones. This green dot is going to be, this one right here, is going to be right at 30 degrees away. You can kind of notice how the angles that it makes here are going to be 1/3 of our 90-degree angle. So 1/3 of 90 is 30. So this one is 30 degrees, which converts to pi over 6 radians. The coordinates for that are going to be √3/2, 1/2, in which case we do 1/2 over √3/2. So our tangent, with a little simplifying and reducing, rationalizing, comes out to √3/3. I'll go on to this blue one. If the green one was at 30, then we go another 30 to get our blue, so we'd say that it's at 60 degrees, which then would convert to, if this was a pi over 6, this would be 2 pi over 6, which we can reduce to pi over 3. Now, again, we can see we have a 1/2 and a √3/2. To find the coordinates of this one, we just flip those two. So our x becomes our 1/2, our y becomes our √3/2. In which case, we also have to flip our tangent to being 3 over √3, but we can't have square root in the denominator. We get rid of that, so we rationalize by multiplying by √3 over √3, in which case we are left with just √3 as our tangent. So going on to this other blue one over here, in this case again it's another 30, so we had 30 here, 60 to here, 90 to here, one more 30 in this direction is going to be 120, which 120 would convert to 2 pi over 3. The coordinates for this one, again, looking at this one over here, it was 1/2 positive in the x direction and √3/2 up in the y direction. So this one's going to be negative, because it's just kind of reflection over the x-axis. Negative 1/2 is the x coordinate, and √3/2, 2 is our y coordinate. Our tangent at this point then is going to be negative √3. So really similar to the other one, just a couple negatives. Now again, we go another 30 degrees to get to the green dot, in which case we'd say this is 150. 150 can be converted into 5 pi over 6. So notice how each of these are either pi over 6 or pi over 3. In fact, they're all technically different pi over 6s, but some of them can reduce down to pi over 3. So 150 degrees is 5 pi over 6. The x the x coordinate on this point is going to be a negative, so we do a negative √3/2. The y is still positive because it's still up from the axis, so we do a 1/2, in which case the tangent is going to be back to the √3/3, but just in the negative direction. So now we've got all the positive ones. And another green one down here is another 30 degrees away. If we know that this is 180, we go another 30 degrees. We would say then that this is 210 in degree measure. I'm actually going to move this up a little bit so we have some room to work. 210 would convert to 7 pi over 6. And the coordinates for this point are the x did not change from the one before it, so it's still our negative √3/2. Our y flipped though, so it's going to be a negative 1/2. Or should I say flipped, reflected over the x-axis. In which case our tangent is going to be √3/3. That would be our measures at that point. For this blue one, again, it's another 30 degrees further. So we'd say then if this one was 210, this one is 240 degrees. If that one was 7 pi over 6, then this one would be 8 pi over 6, which we can reduce to 4 pi over 3. The coordinates for this, again, the x didn't change, so we have negative 1/2 is our x. Our y flipped over the y-axis, or the x-axis, so it becomes root 3 over 2, negative root 3 over 2. And the tangent at this point then is going to be square root of 3. Couple more left here. Go another 30 degrees here. If we were at 240 before, we know that this one is our 270. We had that written down. Then another 30 degrees puts us at 300 degrees right here. Which, going by our sixths, would then get us to 10 pi over 6, which we can reduce to 5 pi over 3. The coordinates here, again, it's going to be positive 1/2 in the x direction, negative root 3 over 2 in the y direction. So our tangent is negative root 3. And we have our very last one is this green one here. It's another 30 degrees, so another 30 from 300 makes 330. If we had 10 pi over 6 before, this one would become 11 pi over 6. The coordinates of which are going to be that root 3 over 2 and negative 1/2. Because we know it's the root 3 over 2 in the positive x direction, and it's negative 1/2 down as our y coordinate. Our tangent then at this point is going to be negative root 3 over 3. Now, going from that and our past, earlier in the video, that should cover all of these points. You'll need to know all of them and be able to write them down on the unit circle for your memorization quizzes.